certification provider. We design DevOps certification program and award accredited certificates. Our concept is to provide experiential DevOps learning for IT engineers and other IT professionals. Apart from this, we also provide career counseling, mentoring, and training to fresh graduates, postgraduates from different universities across the globe. You all can visit our website to get more information on the same. So this is basically going to be a very useful site for those who wants to enroll for our course on. It's going to be an on-spot offer. We are providing a 10% instant discount on the course fees for the webinar attendees. So I'll quickly tell you the dates of our next batch. Next batch is going to start from 11th of February, and you guys can we are sharing the link with you, the discount link with you over the chat window, and you can copy that link and apply that link for getting the 10% instant discount, which is already discounted fees, but webinar attendees will get again 10% discount on this fees. So here is a glimpse of our some of our customer testimonials. Have a look at that. Some more. Okay. So coming to the slide wherein I'll give you a quick introduction about our trainer. So they are basically the real-time industry practitioners who are having a very rich experience of close to around more than 10 years on this technology. So without any further ado, I would like to hand it over to Jatin. Jatin, you can take this forward now.
Thank you, ma'am, for the brief introduction. So, good evening, everyone. I hope you all are doing well and you are from India or maybe from abroad. We will be discussing about few things today. I will give you an overview what is a cloud computing, what is a Azure and all. So, ma'am, can you grant me a permission to share the screen? I think.
Yeah, sure, sure. Please, you can share this.
Okay, now I can got it. Okay. So before starting up the session, if I tell you about myself, so I have a real-time experience on to the different platforms related to the DevOps. So I have an experience majorly onto the Azure and Azure DevOps. Besides this, I also have a different experiences on the different tools like Jenkins, then the GitHub Actions. That is from the CI/CD perspective. From the cloud perspective, I have experience onto the Azure. I have created the resources onto the Azure. I have deployed it using the infrastructure as a code, either using the ARM templates or either using the Terraform. These things I have known. For configuration tools, I have used the Ansible, and I have also worked on Puppet and Chef over there. So these are the major tools which works onto the DevOps side. If you will join into any industry for any company as a DevOps engineer, you will working onto these major tools. The cloud providers can vary, or the CI/CD tools can vary. Either you can use the cloud provider services of the AWS, GCP, Azure, or many more are there. But it depends which one project you will going to work. But majorly, the ones who are there into the market are the AWS and the Azure. Those are leading up the market these days. So many demands are also coming up onto these side. Many companies are hiring the either the freshers or either from the experienced guys. They are hiring up from the people those have the major advantage or have a major knowledge onto the AWS or Azure. So during this course we will be covering up to the Azure and AWS only as much we can. And besides this, we will also cover up the different tools from the DevOps side like Jenkins, Terraform, and also Ansible. Many more tools are there. We will talk about how to build up a troubleshooting, and all those things will be covered during the course. So, just an overview, if you have joined over here or if you have heard about the cloud computing these days, and you're interested to know what is about the cloud computing. So for a short demo, the small demo, I have created one of these PPTs, and I will also show you how does the Azure portal look like, and how you can create up the resources, and what are the advantages of creating up the resources to the Azure, what are the benefits of it. So for that perspective, I have will be presenting you that today. So about the cloud computing, by now, like you all must be aware of these days, cloud computing is being discussed in each and every domain. Every company, every people is now trying to move up to the cloud computing. Even you as a, like if you belong from different domains also, everybody is working on to cloud computing today, either as a user, either as a developer, or anyone indirectly or directly they are associated with the cloud computing. Even people sometimes those don't have the background of the IT, or those don't have a much of knowledge of IT, they are still using up the cloud computing, but they are not aware of that what is happening in behind, how things are working in behind. So if you're trying to build your career into the cloud computing, we will make you aware that how things work into the IT world, how softwares work, how applications work. We will make you aware of those things, and after this course you will be also eligible to deploy your own applications onto the cloud computing environment. So nowadays, if I give you an daily routine example, any user or any person who is using up the cloud storages, like maybe Gmail, or maybe you have a Google Drive, or maybe you are using up a iCloud. Those are all the services which are there onto the cloud computing. So basically, what is a cloud computing? Like you have the major servers or hardwares and devices into a remote location, and there are different service providers are there around the world. So they have a huge data centers. What is a data center? Data centers are places where you have a huge hard disk, huge hard drives in which you store up your data. So like in your laptop you have your hard disk and hard drives, but in your laptop you have a hard drive and a hard disk of small capability, they are not too big. But into these places there are heavy and huge data is kept, huge data centers are there, heavy very high configurations of devices are there. So anybody can go ahead and start creating up their resources onto these services. Either you can go for the Microsoft product, or either to the AWS. Now in cloud computing also we have two terms, which is you can say about the two terms is public cloud and the private cloud. Public cloud are the services which which anybody can go and try and go ahead and start using it up. For example, you have a credit card, you create up your account onto the Microsoft services, and you can start using their services. For example, you want to create a virtual machine, you want to create web app services, you want to create a SQL server, you want to create storages. So you can start doing that whenever you want. In one click you can start doing up that process. Okay, but in case of private cloud, private cloud is the one which a company owns. For example, there's any ABC company that owns the data centers, and they are only authorized to do it. In case of public, anybody can go ahead and start using up their data center. And in private, only the authorized people only can use up their data center. So that is the difference between the public cloud and private cloud. So if you want to explore more, we will discuss between the classes, how does it go, what is the difference of them, who have what advantages, the persons those are going to do work on to the future, which one they should prefer, public cloud or private cloud. Although if I talk about in today's world, now most of the people are now migrating towards the public cloud because of the advantages from the cost perspective. The public clouds are cheaper than the private cloud. So there are the different type of cloud computings are there. Other than this, within the cloud computing, either you have the public cloud or the private cloud. There are three type of services comes into that. One is known as IaaS, PaaS, or SaaS. IaaS is known as the infrastructure as a services. PaaS means platform as services. SaaS means software as a services. So what are the differences between them? Infrastructure as services, for example, you have a virtual machine. what happens, you create up a virtual machine and start deploying your applications and start creating up your application. Platform as services is, you now you have defined set of tasks. Okay, so you make a category that these set of tasks will be done by the service provider, and these steps of tasks will be done by the person who is creating up the resources. So in IaaS, you are the most responsible person who will take care of the future upgrades, dependencies, all those things. But in case of past, you just create up the resources and you can deploy your application within few seconds. Any type of application, if you have created up the for example, .NET application, Java application, and you have created the web app services, you have to just select the framework. After that, you can deploy your application directly to that services. You don't have to take care of the future upgrades or any dependencies or anything. So that is the benefit of the PaaS. Third one is the SaaS, so as a software services, which like Microsoft or Azure provides you as a software to service. In case of IaaS and PaaS, you write up your own code. Okay, you write up on your own code and you deploy them onto the servers. Now, what type of services you are going to deploy, that depends. But in case of SaaS, you don't have even have to create up the code. You just go ahead and start using up as an end user. That is the SaaS services. On the right hand side, if you see public cloud and private cloud, in public and private cloud, I've already defined the differences. If I talk about the hybrid, in case of hybrid, what is a hybrid cloud? The hybrid cloud is a cloud which is a combination of both. For example, you have have your own private cloud and you also want to use up the Azure services. So you will make an integration between them. You will allow them to communicate between each other. Then if you're using up both the services together, then it becomes the hybrid cloud. That is the different type of cloud, and the services provided by these cloud service providers are IaaS, PaaS, and SaaS. So like in Azure or AWS, you have several list of services. Those list of services will be further defined either into the IaaS, PaaS, or SaaS. That is the service model. Now, what is Azure? So, like in our trainings, we will be mostly covering up the Azure. Although the training will be onto the DevOps side, in DevOps, we will be working on Jenkins, that is an open source tool. We will also talk about the Git repositories, and also we will talk about the Terraform and Ansible and Docker, Kubernetes. Along with that, we will also cover up the Azure because most of these services need some platform. So those platforms will be deployed or created in which service provider. We will be using up the Azure. So what is a Azure? Azure is a Microsoft cloud, okay, computing software. So and basically, it was started in 2008 or something when they brought up this idea. But actually, when it was available to the world was 2010. And AWS, which is an Amazon product, that was there into the market in 2006. But if you see the popularity, both are now increasing. Like earlier AWS was used drastically, but now Azure is also growing up, because with Azure you will see many benefits. Why? Because you're also using up your Windows. With Windows is also created by the Microsoft, and Azure product that is also created by Microsoft. They have, so it makes them easy. It is beneficial for the users to use them together because it brings up more of functionality and easy to use. That's why Microsoft Azure is also growing up day by day. And other than this, Azure also have one more tool, which is Azure DevOps. So nowadays, you must have heard about CI/CD pipelines, continuous integration, and deployment. For that part, earlier the open source tool which was used is Jenkins. So that was an open source tool. But now people are also moving towards the Azure DevOps, as Azure DevOps is also one of the tool which is used for the CI/CD perspective. What is continuous integration? What is continuous deployment? We will discuss into next upcoming slides. But how to create up the pipelines, how to work on that, is a very deep topic, so we can't cover in a short span of time for today. I will just show you the overview, how does it look like. But the more on hands-on activity we will cover up it during the sessions. So that is about the Azure. Azure also have a different data center. Microsoft have a different data centers around the world. If you're sitting up in India and you want to create up the resources into any other region, then also you can do it. It's not a strict like if you're living in India, you have to create it in India only. It's not like that. If you want to create resource in any corner of the world, you can do it easily. Now, what are the benefits of the Azure? Scalability, flexibility, security, artificial intelligence, Internet of Things, and cost saving. These are the different benefits of the Azure. And also, if I tell you, I have seen the people are migrating to Azure drastically because of these benefits only. And even Microsoft doesn't need any identity. I mean, like they itself has built up the brand name. That's why people have a belief and trust towards the Azure. So they are moving to the Azure drastically. And I've also started my career as an Azure engineer, even though I've also studied onto the AWS, but I believe Azure is much more easier than the AWS. And even the demand into the market for the Azure is higher because, see, when people learn, they always try to keep the things unique. If you have a Azure knowledge, people are less today into the market, into the IT world, those have the knowledge on Azure as compared to AWS. But the demands of Azure is increasing, so demand of people of Azure is also high. So I would advise to go for the Azure for now. But if you have an interest on AWS, that is another one thing also we can cover up, and we can also compare the things. These are the different benefits: scalability and security, artificial intelligence. These are the different features. See, they are different providers. Each one will claim their own benefits and services. But over here we will discuss about the Azure. I am not promoting Azure over the AWS. I am just talking about the course which we will be covering up during this sessions. So one of the services which is there into the Azure is Azure App Services. Like I was talking about, what is the Azure App Services? I will show you how to create the Azure App Services. What is the how we can create? So this is a Azure portal. What is a Azure portal? This is the portal through which you can go ahead and start creating up your Azure. So to log into this portal, there is a link, portal.azure.com. After you log into this account with your Microsoft services, if you're a new user, if you don't have the access, then it will ask you for your bank account details. Why? It is a like, for example, you're in a company. If you're working for any company, if they already have the account, then they will give you the access. But if you're like me, a normal people, general people who wants to learn the Azure, you can create up your account onto the Azure portal.azure.com. You have to put your credit card details. Only credit cards are acceptable. You can put take it the credit card and put up the details. For first month, they will give you $200 into this Microsoft account to learn and test the functionality of the Azure, only for first month. After that, your services will be there. One of the best advantage of using up the Azure or any cloud service providers is pay as you go model. What do you mean by pay as you go model? So for the time being, you are creating up your Azure services. For example, you are creating up the services for 1 hour, 2 hour, or 3 hour. You have to pay for that time being only. Besides this, you don't have to pay anything. So, for example, you have created a virtual machine for 2 hours. You have done your testing. Now you can destroy that virtual machine, and they will just charge you for 2 hours, not for monthly or yearly. That was the biggest advantage of the cloud computing and the public cloud. So even if you're a student, okay, if you're a student, then you can talk to your university, and then you can get up a student account. In that case, you will get $100 every month to learn and test. So if you are working into the IT as an IT professional into any company and you want to learn Azure, You can ask your company for the Azure subscriptions where they usually test it up and create up the services, because Microsoft has a contract with bigger players, or with your company also. It could possible that they providing you free accounts for learning and testing the Azure. But if you are a general public and you want to learn, then you can use up your credit cards over there. So once you logged into the portal.azure.com, these are the different features will come up. So just giving an overview, what is a subscription? Subscription is one in which you, after creating up the resources, whatever bill is there, that amount will be calculated under the subscription. So subscription is just used for showing up your amount and expenses you're spending up onto the services which you are using up into the Azure. Besides this, if I show you what are the different type of services which they propose, if you click on all services, they have already categorized it. Let it come. They have already categorized into the different categories: journal, compute, networking, storage, web. So for example, you have created any web application or mobile application, so you can use any of them in between to deploy your services. So one of the services among them is Azure App Services. I will show you about the Azure App Services. So over here, you can deploy either the static website, or either you can also deploy your uh, dynamic website. So this is the Azure App Services. You can see that under the Azure Services, you can create up your this is the PaaS services. I was telling you about the IaaS, PaaS, and SaaS. This is the web app services. Under this, you can create your Azure App Services. The major advantage of it is you can select your runtime stack, what type of runtime stack you have, for example .NET or any other. So you can select the runtime stack. I'm just taking one resource group. I will tell you about all those things in classes, because that will go much more in detail. So what happens, you have this particular app services name, whatever name you want to keep it. I have kept this as a service name. Okay. Then what type of code you have written. So as a developer, when you write up a code, it could be Java, it could be ASP.NET, it could be Node, PHP, Python, Ruby. So whatever framework you have selected to write up your code, the same framework you have to select as a runtime as stack, and then you can create your services. For example, if I have written up a Java application, I will select Java 17. Then over there you can select whether you want to deploy onto the Linux or Windows. So many people earlier was thinking if it is an Azure product, then we can only deploy to Windows. It's not like that. Azure also supports the Linux. So you can select the type of operating system for your Azure App Services. Now the region, what is a region? Region means in around the world, Microsoft have the different data centers. In which data center you want to create up the resources, you can select from drop down. You can see Korea, South Korea, Central, North, North Europe, Qatar. See, lot of list of resources and data centers are there. Even with India, we have the data centers, so you can select that one. Then you can select and start creating up your resources. Now in this one, there are two ways. One way is if your code is onto a GitHub. Okay, if your code is onto a GitHub, you can use them for the deployment, or you can also store up your code onto the Azure DevOps, and then through the CI/CD pipelines also you can push your code onto this Azure App Services, and your code will be up and running, and your application will be up and running. That is the advantage of the Azure App Services. From the networking side also, you can allow who can access your app services. Either anyone can access, or only the people limited to your organization can access your application. That part you can take it from the public. So that is about the security, because many people were thinking public cloud is not secure. It's no, the things have changed. Through the networking and through other security tools, you can make your environment much more secure. From the monitoring side, like if you have deployed the application, now you want to monitor of the traffic. So in that case, monitoring can be done, like how your things are working, whether the traffic is high, it's down, how your servers are behaving on that perspective. You can use up the monitoring. Then these are the tags. This is a basic thing. You put up a tagging onto the resources. Once it is done, you can click on review and create. If it is validated, click onto the create. And now you can see my resources have started creating up, and it will be executed just in 5 minutes. And in next 5 minutes, if you select up your code, then you can deploy onto the web app services. These are the advantages of using up the cloud computing. And when you the things which I've done this now is a manual process. And if you bring up the automation in this process, that comes under the DevOps. So if I give you an example of the DevOps, for example, now next time if I want to deploy the uh, this kind of infrastructure again, what I will do, I will not do this process manually, although I can do it, but that is a much more time consuming. Instead of that, I will use up the infrastructure as a code. That is the Terraform or ARM templates. So using that code, you can create up the similar type of services onto the either onto the AWS, either onto the Azure. So that is the tool Terraform, which we will cover up into the during the classes. So in this one again, Terraform is the one. Now once your resources are created, you want to configure this one. Configuration means you want to set up the username and password, you want to install some dependencies, anything, patching, anything, new software installation, any information gathering. If you want to use that tool for multiple configurations, then you can use up the Ansible. That is also being covered into the course. Besides this, there is a CI/CD pipelines. What is a CI/CD pipelines? Continuous integration and continuous deployment. Let me show you how does. I'm giving presenting you right now about the Azure DevOps, but during the classes we will also cover up the Jenkins, which is a open source tool. So this is the another link. If you see this link, dev.azure.com, uh, ignore this part because this will be unique for each and every company and the user. This will be unique, but this is the site dev.azure.com. You can create up your account and start using it up. You will see the page like this. So once you've created your organization and project, you can create up a CI/CD pipeline. What is a CI/CD pipeline? It means continuous integration and continuous deployment. What do you mean by continuous integration, continuous deployment? For example, you have a Java project. Okay, you have written up a code in Java. Now using the Maven, you build it. Correct. You do a compilation of that code. What do you mean by compilation? After running a few commands, you will convert that code into an executable file. What is the executable file? The file which can be executed on any platform, and your software will be downloaded and installed. So to create that executable file, the process is known as a continuous integration. If you do it on a local, it means a build. In the continuous integration, what you are doing, you are repeating up those steps again and again automatically. I will show you all those things during the sessions when we will go for the classes. So you are running up the pipelines, you are running up the task automatically again and again, again and again, because in a company these steps are done several times. But now if you're doing that steps several times manually, it could be time consuming, it could be frustrating, because sometimes people even don't run up the same commands every time. Any issue can come up, they forget to copy the exact part. So what we do, we put up the steps pre-handed, like we will perform these commands again and again, so that manual intervention becomes very small, so that less people can do the less manual work. So from that perspective, you use up a continuous integration. You are building up the executable file. Now once that continuous integration file need to be deployed onto the servers. Servers means it could be web app services or virtual machine or Kubernetes. Then what we will do, we will use up a different tool, that is the CI/CD, that is a continuous deployment tool. That tool can be, there are multiple things into the market. It can be either Azure DevOps, GitHub Actions, or TeamCity, or Jenkins, or many more tools are there. GitLab pipelines, Azure, AWS DevOps. It could be anything. So that can be also be covered over here. So if I show you one of the pipeline, just an overview, how does it look like? So let me see. This is one of the Azure DevOps pipeline. You are setting up the task, the steps, the commands. This is the YAML pipeline. You are setting up the pipeline. And if I have a code, then this pipeline will execute automatically and my artifact will be created and that will be up and running very easily. This is about the CI/CD pipeline. I have few slides regarding the Azure DevOps. Let's cover up on that. Azure DevOps was earlier known as a Visual Studio Online. This is like when we teach, we also try to cover up the some past thing, the historical part also, how the things were developed, how the things have changed into the IT. So Azure DevOps was earlier used as a Visual Studio Online, then it changed it. Its recent version is known as the Azure DevOps, and now most of the people are using up the Azure DevOps for the CI/CD pipeline. So during the class, I will discuss about the Azure DevOps also, and we will also cover up from the Jenkins. I will tell you the differences and how things have changed, what is working. We will be talking about that. During the classes, we will also talk about the interview questions because I usually take up the interviews from my companies. So I know how they what they usually look for a candidate. We will talk about that, and after this also, like I can also give you the um, I can take you the mock test for that, how you present up into the interviews, how to do that part, how you should present, how to give the interviews. Beside this, even our team is there which can help you to go for the interviews, and even we can refer you for the companies and then you can easily crack up. My major point over here will be like from the technical side to teach you each and everything, the differences, how does it look like. For now, I am telling you the differences about the Azure DevOps, what are the features they have. So into the Azure DevOps, we have the boards, Azure pipelines, Azure repos, Azure test plans, Azure artifacts. Azure boards are generally used for recording up your task, what things are working, how things are working. For that, you use the Azure DevOps. That is for recording up the project progress. That is the Azure boards. Second one is Azure pipelines. Like I have just shown you, that kind of pipeline is there. That is a CI/CD pipeline, continuous integration and continuous deployment. You can integrate these tools with the third party tools as well. For example, if I want to integrate the Jenkins with the Azure DevOps, you can do that. If I want to integrate with other tools as well, we can do it. Then we have Azure repositories. Repositories are the version controllings. What is the use of a version controllings? Like for example, you have a writing up a code. Now you want to make some changes into the code, as well as you want to keep up the history, what changes has been made to the code. In that perspective, we use of the repositories. So most of the people have heard about the GitHub. So GitHub is the most common tool in which even the community stores up the code. And for example, you're looking for any project, you must have seen the Git repositories. Under those Git repositories, a code is there. So that is how people are sharing up their code to the different people into the world, so that you can use it as a reference. So similarly, in Azure DevOps also we have the Azure repositories. Even repositories are of two types, distributed and centralized. We will talk about that during the sessions. I will show you the hands-on activity. Even I will give you the assignments on it, and we will discuss during the sessions also how we can do that part. Then Azure test plans. If you have a testing team and you want to do a manual testing and automation testing, you can use up a test plans. Other than this artifacts, what is the artifacts? Like you have created an executable file, so you can store up that artifacts or the executable file at some storage account, some storages, some places. So for that we use up the Azure artifacts. If I talk you about the other tools into the market, then that is a Nexus, JFrog, many more are there. But in Azure we have the Azure artifacts. Then this is the little bit explanation about the repositories, about the version controlling. So version controlling basically is for the keeping the history of the changes made to the files and folders. That is helpful because if I want to revert my changes, or even if I want to review what changes has been made and who has made those changes, that comes under the Azure repos. Okay, that is a Git part. I will talk about that in the during the classes. Azure DevOps pipeline, you will usually, when a search about the DevOps, you will see this a diagram, the infinity sign. What do you mean by infinity sign? That the processes during the software development, that is keeps on going, that keeps on going, that is a infinity sign. So first you build up the code, you deploy it, you test it, you do monitoring, you get a feedback, and again you do this process again and again. That is why we always have a infinity sign. We Whenever you see the DevOps, this is the thing which comes into that picture. Azure artifacts, I've already told you, like if you want to store up your executable file, then in that case you can use up the Azure DevOps artifactories. Now, after completing of the courses, you people will get a certification from the DevOps University that is acceptable from these organizations. You can go ahead and start applying for the companies after you get that certification. Even I would say after completing the courses from our side, you will be eligible to clear the licenses, or you can say the certifications from the companies. Like Microsoft provide you the certifications, you can enroll for them. Even AWS provide you certifications. So many people go for the certification because companies believe if you have the certification, you have a specialization into those tools. So that's why those are the parts, those are the different providers. But even the DevOps University give you this particular certificate which is verified and which is acceptable by the many companies around the world. So if I come back to the Azure portal, these are the my when we were talking about this Azure App Services got created. So if I go to this Azure App Services, uh, for now I'm just showing you the default page of the Microsoft. But if you have the code ready, as during the sessions I will show you that how to deploy this one, because that time I will have a code and I will run up the services. If I show you an overview, if you have a code, if you have deployed your code onto the web app services, then you can take up this URL, and then you will, if you will click up your URL, then your application will be shown over here. This is the just a common page from the Microsoft side to confirm your Azure app services are running. But once you will come be deploying your own application, then your application will be visible. Now think about this way, how DevOps is helping, how these services are helping to you. So now your DevOps and all has made your life so easy. If you have worked into the IT world, you must have seen, or you must have seen a code. People make up a changes into the code. Firstly, they used to write up the commands to execute onto the servers, or they used to write up the commands to execute to their local. Many times they do a manual process, correct? Now just think, if they are committing their changes and pushing up onto the Azure or any of the Git account, GitHub, GitLab, or anywhere, if they are just running up two commands, git commit and git push. What does these two commands do? Git commit is saving your changes, and secondly git push, you are pushing up your changes to the remote server. If you're doing just two commands and after 5 minutes if you see, your changes are now reflecting up onto this server. Now, this is so quick. This is so easy. No manual intervention is required in this one. It made developers life easy and even the project life easy because manual process has been removed. All those things were automatic. So, and even the chances of failures are less now because he has written up the code, it is deployed. Now chances of failures are also less. That's why the DevOps was highly demandable into the IT world because of the pain and the time reduction. Nowadays, time is money. If you have saved up your time and you have presented and given the project, delivered the project with the quality on time, that is a bigger thing and the biggest thing. That's why the DevOps was highly preferable to use into the IT industry. Okay. Now we have 15 minutes. Let's discuss about QA. If you have any questions and doubts, you can tell me. I can we can take up the question and answers of yours. Any questions related to the topics? Anything? If you want to speak, let me know. No, I will allow you to speak about the course, about the topic. Okay, one person has raised up the query hand. Okay, I'm allowing you to talk. Yes, Frederick.
I just had one question regarding continuous integration. By profession, I'm a quality assurance engineer. So I have a question regarding Azure. So by the look of things, would you say that Azure will replace most of the other continuous integration tools, such as Jenkins and what's this now again? Yeah, such as Jenkins and other tools?
They were Team City and other tools are there.
Yes,
GitHub actions are there. Yeah.
yes.
So I
So,
would say, yeah, I got your question. So why Azure DevOps is removing, replacing of other tools? One of the major reason is if you have worked on Jenkins or other tools, you must have seen for each and every purpose, we are using the individual tools. For example, Jira was used earlier, and even many
mm,
companies are using up Jira today. Why? To first is either to a ticketing tool or either keep up the records or keep up the progress of the project. Okay. Now,
yeah.
instead of using up a Jira, you have a boards.
Mhm.
Okay, under the boards you can keep up the progress of the project. So Jira has been replaced from there. Now from the CI/CD pipeline, you are using up the Jenkins or any other tool. Instead of that, you can use up the CI/CD pipeline. Now, the third is repositories. Earlier, people were using GitHub, Bitbucket, GitLab. Many other repositories tools were there. Many platforms are there. Now you have the same feature into the repositories. Then for test plans, you have the other tools. So that feature also came up over here. For artifacts, you have the JFrog and Nexus. That feature also came over here. So my point is, instead of using up a multiple tools, which to make your project working in a good way, if you use up a one tool, solution for all the problems, that's why the people have started moving toward the Azure DevOps. That is the advantage of the Azure DevOps.
Oh, I see. Yes, yes. Makes perfect sense. Makes perfect sense. Yeah. It will be definitely be a lot easier if you have everything in one system. Yes, thanks. Thanks for that.
Yeah,
Thank you.
thank you. Anybody else have any questions? Okay, Shakir, I am allowing you to talk. Yes, Shakir, you can ask. Shakir, you are allowed to talk. Please unmute yourself. Okay, Satyajit, Paul, I'm allowing you to talk.
Hello, Jatin. This is Satyajit and hi team. And my question is that why do you use that artifacts? What is the benefits of that? And
Okay,
what is the significance of that within the deployment and in cloud?
okay. So what happens if you have worked onto the softwares or you have created up the code, after creating up a code, you always run up a compiler to create a executable file, correct? So in case of Java, you use up a Maven to create an executable file, and you get an executable file into a jar, var, or EAR. What that executable file means you copy that code, that package into any of the server, double click on that, or run up the commands to execute that code, correct? So you must have used in your daily life also. If you want to download any software, you go to google.com, you install, get some executable file, double click on it, and your software gets installed. So when you in a company you work, usually what happens, there are different versions of those artifacts, those packages gets created, like version 1, version 2, version 3. You must have seen several times a new version or updates come up into the market. So for each and every version you have a different type of code, because code has been rewritten several times. Now you have a version 1, version 2, and version 3. So that version 1, version 2, version 3 executable files need to be stored somewhere, correct? You need some storages over there. You want to keep up the version. This particular package is for version 1, this particular package is version 2. For that perspective, you need some storages. You need some places where you can keep that executable file. For that perspective, you use up the artifacts. So let me see if I have this one. Okay, do you see my pipeline was executed and one artifact was published? This is a these are the artifacts which I can either keep onto my local also, or add to the artifact. This is the common server where I can push up my different versions of those packages. That is the use of the artifact. In other than this, in artifacts also you can develop your monitoring part. What do you mean by monitoring part? You can also check the vulnerability of the code. Sometimes what happen, we take up some dependencies or we take up the packages from the internet which could be harmful, that can be vulnerable. So we can also detect that part from the artifact storages, because these companies have built up that once your artifact is created, we will run up a scanning on that if it is vulnerable or not. But that is the another advantage. During the build also, we can run up the vulnerability scanning using the sonar cube or wild source board. We can do it while creating up the build also, but after creating up a build, multiple versioning and testing part can be done using the artifacts. That is the use of the artifact. I hope you got it now.
Yes, Jatin, I got it. Could you please create one artifacts if possible? So I will get to know about that much more idea.
That is not possible right now. During the classes, I will do it because we have limited time today. But usually, what we do, we create up the artifacts and store it over here. So, if you have worked on Azure DevOps, how to push up the artifact over here, we have this step. Okay, I will show you. Um, in this one, you can select the artifacts part. So you can push your artifacts through the authentication. There are different ways. This is much more deeper. It will go. You can select the feeds and then you can push up the organization and repository name. Then the artifact will be pushed over here. So if you want it, then I can show you during the classes. If you have more doubts, then we can plan it separately. But we don't have enough time to do it right now, so it will be difficult for me to present now.
Okay, that's okay. That's okay. So you mean to say that it is once it is published, then it will convert to YAML file, right? It will convert it to the YAML file in the artifacts.
No, no, no. Artifact will depend upon the type of code you have written. This
Okay, okay,
YAML was for CI/CD pipeline. For example,
okay,
you have a Java. What is the extension of the Java? It is jar, var, or EAR. Correct. So that when you convert the Java code using the Maven to the jar, so that artifact which will be created, that will be jar format. That jar will be stored under this artifacts. Okay.
okay, 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 okay. Got it, got it.
So we have a different type, what type of code you have written, what kind of application compiler you have used, what type of extension will it create, that will be stored over here. The pipeline which I have showed you, that was the YAML one just for the pipeline. In Azure, you have two types of pipeline, Azure classic pipeline and the YAML pipeline. If you want to write up through the code, that is a YAML. If you want to create up a classic, the classic one is the most easier one. You see this option, and if you are not aware of what is the CI/CD pipeline, I'm just going a little bit fast. In this one, you select the template. Okay, if you have a .NET code, Java code, for example, you have a Java code, you select this template and see in just one click, my pipeline is ready. I will select few of the inputs, I will give few of the inputs, and after that I will execute this particular pipeline. My code will be converted to the executable file through this one. This process is known as the CI/CD pipeline. This is the CI, continuous integration. When you want to deploy the same onto the server, then it becomes the releases, or that is the deployment part. So we have two phases. First is CI, continuous integration. Second phase is continuous deployment. Okay.
Yeah, got it, got it.
Anyone, any other questions? Okay, Teja, you're allowed to talk.
Hi, Jatin.
Yeah, hello.
Yeah. So we can create the after create a WAR file, we can deploy those WAR file into deploy to this by using app services, and what is the difference between app services and function apps? Can you explain that?
And there are two things. In the case of app services, you are creating up the servers. Okay, you are running up the servers. It will be up and running most of the time. In case of apps are the serverless. It's more onto the event driven program. So what do you mean by event driven program? For example, whenever something triggers, then the servers will react. It will create the servers, it will create the actions, and once the action is completed, it will stop the servers or destroy the servers.
Mhm.
That's the difference between the function apps and to the Azure App Services. In your Azure App Services, if you are getting up the request or not, still your servers will be up and running. But in case of function apps, once you get up the request, then you will go ahead and start using up the function apps and or these services. That's the major differences.
Yeah, okay. Thank you.
In function apps, I would say it's much more easier. as compared to the Azure App Services, but they have their own features and functionality. In Azure, in Function Apps, you can just drag and drop what are your requirements are. But the in the case of Azure App Services, you get a more of the flexibility to write up your own code. That's the major differences.
Yeah. Okay. Okay. Thank you, Jatin.
Any other questions, anyone? If not, okay, it's fine. Rishika, we can conclude this one.
Sure, Jatin. Yeah, so thank you, Jatin, for the wonderful session. I hope I am audible.
Yes, you're audible.
Okay, okay. And I would like to thank you everyone for attending this session. Guys, please subscribe to our YouTube channel. We will be uploading the recording of this session in next 24 hours in our YouTube channel. So you'll be having access to our this webinar and the previous webinar as well. And follow us on LinkedIn also and Facebook company page also, so that you get the update on the latest webinar, upcoming webinars which are going to happen in future. Also, guys, please provide your valuable feedback for us on Google reviews and Trustpilot. We are providing you the link for the same over the chat window, and it is really going to help us if you take out just 2 minutes of your time and give us the feedback on Google reviews and Trustpilot. So thank you once again everybody for joining the session.